Carolyn Dube here. What's the play for today? Well, it has to do with something that's a part of fall, that's been a part of fall for as long as I can remember. And no, I don't mean things like wonderful flowers. Oh, those are great. It's back to school Crayola crayons. I love getting that fresh box of crayons, and I gotta admit, pretty much every time I walk by one of those displays when they have like the 50-cent boxes of Crayola crayons, I want to buy one, even if I don't need one, because there's just so many good memories to those Crayola crayons. So I'm going to use those to do a little bit of crayon rubbing with a stencil today. To do a crayon rubbing, what you need is a stencil and then some kind of thin paper to put on top of it. I'm going to be using tissue paper for this, and then a crayon. And you simply rub across the top of it gently using the long side of the crayon. The hardest part of this whole process is actually getting the wrapper off of the Crayola crayon. Now, once you do this, you end up with these wonderful little lines in the entire pattern of the stencil. So that means you have something that you can color in and play around with. I'm going to show you a whole bunch of options with that in just a moment. Now, this stencil, you may not recognize it from StencilGirl because it just came out. It's a part of this month's Stencil Club. And this is one of 3 that come in the Stencil Club set. Let me show them all to you here. This one is the 6x6. And it's a mashup between a stencil that Mary Beth Shaw designed and one that I designed. And then we've got the 9x12 here, another mashup between Mary Beth and myself. And a little bit later in the video, I'll tell you about the trouble the 2 of us got into when we were doing this. But anyway, let me get back to the crayon rubbing that we're doing here in this video. Now, the first one that I did for you, I used a really light touch. This time, I'm not. I'm going for full upper body strength on this. So much so that I'm going to break the crayon. And I will tell you that when you're working with a smaller piece of the crayon, it is harder to get a really light, clear image. So having that long one does make a difference. Now, if you want the look of lots and lots of crayon there, super dark, then absolutely use any size that you want. But I found that if I want the really light looking look, just that really hint of the line, the full length long crayon and a very light touch is what you need for that. You can leave them the way they are, or you can add a bit of color to them. Here you can see some different ways I've filled these in using colored pencils. This is one of the reasons why I absolutely adore stencils, is because you can never use them up. You can use them over and over again and create all sorts of different options just by changing the color. For those of you that have the mind of an engineer and put together a pattern in your head and then execute it and it goes flawlessly, I applaud you. My mind does not work that way. I tend to just kind of mess around and see what happens. And that's what I'm going to do here. But before I actually do it, I've got to be able to use a colored pencil. Now, you would think it's not that hard to use a colored pencil. You simply color it in the space where you're at. Except I keep breaking this one. So that lead broke. So I simply sharpened it. And you'll never believe what happens next. Yeah, this lead just kept breaking and breaking, but finally I got to a point where the lead wasn't going to break and I could actually start coloring this thing in. I guess you can tell this is a pencil that I've dropped a couple of times and actually broken the lead that was inside the wood, but now we seem to be good to go. We are on track to get this thing colored in. When I've done this, I've done it with 2 colors, 3 colors, 4 colors, 5 colors, 10 colors. There is no rule for how many that you have to use or that you can use. There are no limits. You can use it however it makes you happy. On some of these, when I've colored them in, I've simply done an alternating pattern. First color, then second color, first color, then second color, first color, then second color, and I just repeat. On this one, I'm not doing that. The only rule that I'm giving myself is use each color on each row. And that seemed like a good plan. But you're going to see how I get myself into a little bit of a pickle with the pink because I didn't want any of the colors touching each other. And well, there you go. See the pinks touching the pink right there. Yep, I'm going to call that an oops, an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. And the opportunity in that is I now get to try and see how this changes when I get colors bumping into each other. So I intentionally did it with that green over there on the bottom left. And I'm actually going to do more of that as I'm playing with it. And it's really easy to be playful with these patterns because it's simply a piece of tissue paper and a stencil and a crayon. And by the way, if you make one and you go, I don't totally love it, I'm going to show you something at the end that you can do that completely changes how it looks. Now, along with these 3 stencils, members of Stencil Club get a members-only exclusive video for that month. And this month, it's Mary Beth Shaw and myself doing some gel printing together using these stencils. Now, Mary Beth had no idea what exactly we were going to do. She just knew to have her gel press plate there and be ready for whatever came. And boy, oh boy, did she bring it. Because you see, while I'm demoing, she's doing it in real time on the other side of the screen. So you can see her doing it as I'm doing it and how different it looks having the same technique done by 2 different people using 2 different sets of colors. Now, I paused at this point when I was using the colored pencils because I thought about leaving those 2 rows of white in there. And it was really a toss-up for me. Do I leave them the way it is or do I add some more? And, well, I'm in a more is more kind of mood, so I added some more. And with this, there are so many different ways to play with pattern on this, to experiment with different colors, different looks, so many options for you just from one little stencil. Now, once I got 3 of these rows completely colored in, I decided I wanted to leave that top row empty. And I kind of liked it there with that white. But again, I said I'm in a more is more kind of mood, so I decided I'm going to do something I haven't done any other time. And that is I'm going to color it in, each one of them the same color going all the way across the row using a black colored pencil. And speaking of the colored pencil, you might be wondering exactly which brand, which type, which color, which exact everything about these colored pencils I'm using. And they're just an assortment of colored pencils. I have picked them up over the years. I'm not specific to any brand. There are many great ones out there, but I truly believe the very, very best art supply that you can use is the one within arm's reach. And these just happen to be the colored pencils in the colors that I like that were nearby. Well, now that I've just about got this row colored in black here, I'm like, I think I really like the look of the black. Now, I could stop here. In fact, you can stop at any point in your play that you want. But I decided I want to add a little bit of a border around this. And I started wanting a little border, and then I realized I wanted a little bit more of a border. So I just kept going over it so it had that loose black line around the edge, and then simply trimmed up that tissue paper. But wait, there's more. Let me show you how I did the split oval look. This gives you even more pattern possibilities with this. So what I did is I simply drew a line down the middle and colored 1/2 of the oval. Then I colored the other half of the oval a different color. To do the outside frame around that specific oval, I just did the alternating color on the outside. And by splitting that oval in half, it adds a whole nother look to this pattern. So you've got the idea of how this works. Let me bring that one back so you can see what that split, how it changes the look of the pattern. Yeah, you've got the freedom to do that and the flexibility with this one single stencil. But wait, there's more. Just because the stencil is this size and shape, it doesn't mean you have to keep your tissue paper that way. You can actually cut it up into individual pieces, into chunks, clusters, and it really changes the look of it. I love that long straight line of the 4 of them there, but I realized if I cut off just 2 of them, that looks completely different. So when you're doing this, if you happen to have a combination that you may not be completely in love with, some colors like yes, playing around, experimenting, try cutting it up and seeing how it looks, because now you've got all these wonderful little collage pieces to add into your play. Thanks for joining me for today's play. If you'd like to know more about Stencil Club, and there's all sorts of fun stuff included with it, you can find all that information over at StencilGirlProducts.com. And yep, there's a link down below for you. If you've enjoyed this video, if you've had fun, then I'd so appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of my videos, hit that subscribe button. That way you'll know as soon as I've got a new video out. Well, thanks so much for being here and letting me be a part of your colorful journey.